This is Charlie Parsons for Boxing Social in association with William Hill and Empire Fight Store. I have to say, every interview I've done up here, I do feel like I'm on holiday, to be honest, a little bit. It does feel like a bit of a holiday. I'm delighted to be joined by Greg Mehan.
Yep.
I believe that's it. I just thought, we've been chatting all throughout the week, and I thought a very interesting character to get on the channel. You are working out here with John Ryder. You're his sort of mindset, mental coach, etc.
Yeah.
I'll let you sort of divulge into it. But first things first, I know you've been working with him for a long time. Why and how did that connection come about?
I've known John for about 10 years now. I've got a good friendship with John, and we spoke before this fight was officially announced, and he knows what I do, and he said, he doesn't want to leave no stone unturned. So he basically said to me, just teach me all I need to know about, how we think, how we can control emotions, how our brain works in certain situations. And, John's got a great self-belief and understanding of mindset because, he's worked for many years with Tony Sims and Dan Lawrence, who've got great mindset understanding. But he wanted to go a bit deeper with it, and which is what I do, and helped to explain about emotions, because for professional athletes, for anyone really, if you don't discipline and control your emotions, they will use you at the wrong time. And for an athlete, a professional athlete, if they can't control their emotions or understand them, then they will unfortunately come unstuck at the wrong time. And me and John started working for this camp about 16, 17 weeks ago.
I know we won't sort of disclose other people you work with, etc., but you do work with loads of athletes, whether that be in football, other sports, etc. I know you also speak to CEOs, etc. Find it all very interesting. The thing that I like about this case so much is that John's very open with it. Look, we're in a sort of an era now where it's becoming more and more accepted. Not necessarily to not feel okay or anything, but that is there as well. But also just being able to channel and process these things. Nice that John's so open about it, especially going into the biggest fight of his career.
Well, that's the thing about John Ryder. People would come to me for all different reasons, like you said, athletes or CEOs or anyone, for a vast range of reasons why they'll come. And for John, it was more of, he has a great understanding of mindset, and he just wanted it to stay that way. And so the case was with John was to teach him as much as possible about how the emotions can be really helped into the fight. So he's been really good with his learning of it all, and he takes a lot of it in. So he's been doing really well with it.
Greg, what do you do at the start of camp? And what are the changes throughout as the camp goes on? I'm quite interested to that. We will divulge into what you do on fight week, how you prepare for certain things, i.e. something we've spoke about, entering the ring in the lion's den. But, you talked 15, 16 weeks ago. What's that process like from sort of start, middle, end? How do you notice things changing? How do you channel different thoughts, etc.?
With John in particular, as I said, it was a case of him learning a bit deeper about how and why we think certain emotions. And as I said, he has a great understanding of mindset anyway. So it was more like a teaching session with John, rather than him saying, look, I need help with this or help with that. He already has a great mindset. So it was more a case of like, this is why someone would feel this way.
Willingness to learn.
Exactly, and he's very smart. He's very smart and intellectual. And it was quite different from a lot of other sessions I do with other athletes, in terms of, it was just a case of me explaining a little bit of science about stuff, like that emotion will come from that part of your brain, this is what caused it, these type of chemicals and stuff, and he just soaks it in. And what I noticed as the weeks went on, he'd ask me more in-depth questions, more educated questions, so he was educating himself as well. And no stone unturned is the mantra for this camp for John, and I noticed how much more interested he got week in and week out.
What I found quite interesting about your work, because it is sort of like a fairly specific thing, there's counsellors and therapists and all sorts of stuff like that. But I suppose, from what I see, yours isn't so much coping mechanism, but more like mindset, like literally like written on your hat. It is as straightforward as that. What sort of stuff are you going through in those early sessions? What's the difference from now? Like, what does he need to channel at the start of camp, and that's so different to sort of towards the end? Because I imagine, obviously, what you're telling him now, when he's in the gym sparring, etc., he's not needing to worry about a long wait. So, how do you find you implement differences throughout it all?
Well, someone like John Ryder, his experience is massive, and he works with such a great team with Tony Sims and Dan Lawrence already. So it was more of a case of tweaking maybe little things rather than other boxers might come and I might have to train quite a lot. He has a great sleeping pattern. We worked a little bit on breathing and breath work just to help with controlling mind states. And that was something that he was very interested in, and he took it to duck to water with that, and he practiced it daily. A lot of people can get taught a tool, but then they struggle to consistently execute every day with it. But where he works with Tony and Dan, and they're very militant with stuff like that, he's adapted that mentality. And so when I was teaching him certain breath works to do daily, he done them every single day, and he enjoyed it and learned a lot from it. So. No, that was one of the main parts we worked on.
This week specifically, I've been very lucky to spend a lot of time around yourself, or basically the whole time around you guys this week. So I sort of have a true extent and idea of what actually is going on a day-to-day. But sort of for the audience, how do things change? From that, obviously he was out in LA last week, and you would have had discussions with him. This week, one-on-one, hands-on, you are with him. As the week goes on, what sort of stuff are you starting to implement now?
I think most of the work has been done for John in terms of what we done together. Me being here for the week is more like just being a man in the background, in case there is anything he needs to go over or tweak. We've not really sat down too much this week. I think a lot of the stuff we worked on as well, which is massive in sport now, is visualisation of stuff and becoming comfortable with environments. And me and John worked on being comfortable being here, trying to look at certain pictures and certain things to make him feel comfortable when he got here. And I've noticed that this fight week he's been extremely calm and relaxed, and I think that's a lot to do with his professionalism for one, the team he's got around him for two, and also because of the visualisation work he done. He feels like he's been here before, he's been comfortable, and I think that's important. And I've noticed that he's really grown into this week. So yeah, I'm impressed with that.
Greg, in terms of fight night, something that I've been very interested in and sort of taking a liking to, like I sort of said earlier on, he's going to walk to the ring, he's then going to have a long wait, there's going to be a raucous 60,000 probably plus in there. What planning and training do you do? Because even everything you go over, he will prepare for that, but there's nothing like it until you actually do it. How do you prepare for moments like that?
I think for John, his experience would have helped mostly with preparation for that. But like you say, this is the Lion's Den. There's 60,000 people. There's going to be a lot of waiting around. Canelo's probably going to take half hour to get in the ring. John's going to be, waiting for him to do that. And John mentioned in an interview recently that and someone asked a similar question: how do you deal with these sort of situations? And for John, he mentioned, and it's right, he's been over that ring walk and been in them changing rooms every single day for weeks now. It's going to be comfortable for him. He's done everything he needs to do. There's breath regulation techniques to calm the nerves and things like that. Someone like John, none of us are perfect. There's always going to be, there's a big difference between nerves and anxiety. A lot of people get them confused, and someone like John, with his experience, understands what nerves are.
Do you want to touch on that a little bit? Because last night I found that very interesting. Even the point where you sort of said to me, when you wake up and adrenaline's released, and sometimes you can feel you're anxious, but you're actually not, etc. Yeah. Do you want to sort of go into that a little bit more?
The best way to describe that would be for any sort of athlete. If a boxer would train for 3 months. Footballers training week in, week out all season. Olympic athlete would train for 4 years. But in the changing rooms before an event, for either one of these sort of athletes, they all feel a new emotion, especially like, someone fighting for a world title in a big stage, or a World Cup final of football, or going for a gold medal. An athlete could get an emotion inside which they're not seen before, not experienced before, and they can quickly identify it as anxious or anxiety. Now, anxiety and excitement have a very close connection in terms of what it does to the body and mind. So unless someone's able to identify that it is what it is in terms of excitement. You know, it's a big event for them. They've trained a long time for it, and that's all it is. You know, if I label it as anxiety, then it opens the door up of a negative thinking process, and they can start to think, oh, I'm feeling like, oh, am I going to lose? What happens if I do this? What happens if this happens? And they go like this. If they identify it quickly as like, oh, this is a new feeling. You know what? I'm just excited here. This is good. Then they're going to go this way, but they've got to make sure they don't go too high with it.
It's about learning how to sort of work out what it is as well.
Yeah, you know, I go through a process of getting to know somebody, learning about what makes them tick, and then explaining to them what emotions actually are in certain situations, so they can control how they think and feel, and then identifying it in that situation. Because if you do get anxiety, your heartbeat raises. If you get excited, your heartbeat raises. So you've got to be able to know yourself and understand yourself, and be able to bring yourself to centre by saying, you know, this is where I'm meant to be. You know, these changing rooms is what I've worked for, and be able to control their self-talk. But it's a practice thing, you know. It's going over the process every week, week in, week out. It's like they're training. It's mental fitness. You know, without mental fitness, the physical fitness means nothing. You could be the fittest person in the world. If you've got no mental fitness, you're not going to be able to execute what you want to do.
Greg, finally from me, on a broader scale, let's talk football as well, actually, particularly, because I found it very interesting what you say. You work with players, whether it be my age or older, etc. Like you were saying, and you won't mind me discussing this, they'll ring you after a game and be like, oh, you know, I had a shit game. And you'll go, well, obviously, you know, it's natural to feel bad. A real problem would be that if you were to play a game and play badly and you felt fine, then that's a problem in itself. Working with athletes like that, and obviously these guys are characters who are in the public eye and the media, maybe even more so than John. You know, some of them superstars, egos involved, etc. How do you deal with that, and what sort of techniques are involved in dealing with those sort of characters?
As we briefly spoke about with the footballers, you know, it's a day-to-day thing sometimes, you know, because there's like 4 or 5 players competing for one position. If they have a bad day training and the other 4 players have a good day training, you know, their heads can go pretty quickly, you know, and it's a day-to-day battle that they have, and it's a different type of pressure in different sports. There's obviously a universal pressure in sport, but for football it's slightly different in terms of it's a daily pressure. I think that the technique mainly to use with these guys is to understand that emotions have to flow through us. You know, if we get frustration or sadness, or we feel like we're failed at something, we've got to be able to let it flow through us. But it's a case of identifying it quickly, understanding why you're upset. If you lose, you should be upset sometimes, you know, but don't let it last for 3 days. You've got to understand what you're going through and quickly eliminate that. And there's training that we do with in terms of breath work. Again, is a good one to regulate people's focus and mind, and also overthinking. A lot of people overthink, especially in sports, you know, and especially in daily life for all of us. But it's a case of being able to clear your mind, which is a technique that, you know, we try and do with people a lot. It's just to sort of not think of anything. It sounds crazy, but it is something that can be done. It's just to clear the mind, and it's done with daily training, practice, you know, and there's tools that, you know, that they can lean on when they need them.
Well, Greg, an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Glad we managed to do the sit down. Hopefully the first of many. Yep. When I see you about at Fight Weeks, definitely enjoy doing more of these. Yep. Final message ahead of Saturday, something very interesting. Me, myself, I suppose I'm sort of in this new generation perhaps where I understand a little bit more, and I get it. I get why it's needed. I suppose also from you, there's a stigma, isn't there, about needing help and stuff, and I think that's starting to go.
No, 100%, and I think this is where John Ryder is so exceptional, because like you mentioned, you're very open about it, because John sees this as a strength. You know, he didn't come for any particular reason to work with me. It was a case of, I don't want to come down from where I'm at. I want to keep it consistent. So someone who's mentally strong still wanted someone there to teach them more. You know, no one has to be mentally vulnerable to want to grow into, to learn how to do it. You know, and John's up here, and he just wanted to make sure it was there. And him being open and talking about this sort of stuff, and you seeing me here and stuff like that, and he, you know, I think that's inspiring for a lot of younger people to be like, you know what, if someone that's got to the stage where John has in his career and what his career's been through, then I think it's going to open the door for more young people to be open to speaking to people like me.
Greg, very well said. Thank you for speaking to us at Boxing Social.